everyone out there. This is Speak, Lead, and Grow, the D57 podcast, where we always have a mission in mind. I'm Dee Marie, and I'm going to be one of your co-hosts for today's episode. My fellow co-host is Lisa. Lisa, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lisa Thompson. I am the Public Relations Manager of District 57, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you
Lisa,
so much, Dee. And Louise,
thank you for that.
being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much for that. We are super excited to have as our special guest the world champion of public speaking, Luisa Montalvo. Luisa, would you give us a brief introduction, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me, Dee Marie and Lisa. I'm Luisa Montalvo, and I'm coming to you from South Texas. I was born and raised here. I worked till the age of 53 and retired from Abbott Laboratories. I worked there for about 25 years. I got into dog rescue after I retired, and that's what I was doing till up about 2 years ago. But I've been in Toastmasters off and on for 13 years.
Thank you so much for that, Luisa. So Luisa will be interviewed by the two of us, and what's going to happen, she will be interviewed over the next 3 episodes. Isn't that exciting? We're going to get a chance to take a deep dive into everything that makes Luisa tick. And are we excited to find out what that's going to look like? We will follow along in Luisa's footsteps on the road to her becoming the impactful, phenomenal public speaker that she is today. So, Luisa, when you think back over your life, were you outgoing and very talkative as a child?
Dee Marie, that's a great question. And just to let you know how talkative I was, I guess at one point I must have been 6 or 7 years old, and my mother didn't know how to tell me to quit talking because I guess I was always talking. So she said, "Did you know that when you're born, you only have so much of your voice that you get, and then after that you lose your voice forever?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I think it kept me quiet for 2 days because I was trying to save my voice. So I think the answer to that is yes. I was very talkative as a child.
That's so interesting. Thank you for that. It must have been scary, though, to hear your mom say that you'd lose your voice.
Well, I think after a couple of weeks, I realized maybe she was trying to get me to be quiet. So,
at what point did you realize you had a gift for public speaking?
I still don't think I've realized that yet. People tell me I have a gift for it, and to me, I'm just getting up on stage, doing public speaking, and for some crazy reason, people say I'm authentic. People say I'm conversational. I don't think I know how to be any other way. So if you want to call it great at public speaking, I'll take it.
Wow. So you just answered my next question, Luisa, because I was going to ask you about if there were a time when you remembered being able to share your thoughts and speaking up to others, but you just said that. So let me ask you this question. Do you find that being vulnerable enhances your public speaking or not?
That's a great question. Being vulnerable, I would say absolutely. It's just the level of vulnerability that you want to share with your audience. And if you truly know who your audience is, you'll know how far you can take them. And then you want to go just one step further.
That's really interesting. I had never thought about it that way. Let me ask you, what were the activities in your school age years that led you into public speaking?
Great question. This is my favorite. I was actually going to college to be a drama director. That was my goal because I loved drama so much when I was in high school. And I also participated my senior year in what they called impromptu, prose, and poetry. So these were speaking events for the UIL events that we had there at the school. So I got very involved in drama. I got very involved in the speaking events that I could. and I absolutely loved it. And I thought, if I could do this, in fact, somebody says, I know what your future job is. I said, oh my gosh, what is it? They said, Disney World or Disneyland. And I'm like, oh,
It is amazing. It's as if you're reading my mind, Luisa, because my next question was going to be, was there a time when in your imaginary picture in your head, you were spotlighted as the winning speaker? And you've already described the fact that you thought that's where you were headed. So when you thought about that in your head as being the person announced as the winner, what were you planning to do with that?
actually, the night that I was awarded the coveted first place, I think it's the first time I disagreed with the judges because I didn't think I should have been first place. I didn't have me placing at all. And that is because the speech I gave was not the speech I had practiced prior. To me, I had left out three major important parts. So to me, when I got off stage, I felt I had failed. So when they announced my name, I don't know if you go back and see the video, because there was a videographer right in front of me recording it, and I went, wait, what? And I almost demanded a recount because I could not believe that I was actually named the best speaker. So it was amazing, and I almost wanted to say that for all the times I had competed and hadn't placed and thought I should have placed, I was taking this trophy home for all the times that I thought I should have won and didn't, and I was just going to call it even. So it was great. It's still surreal. Still can't believe it.
Yeah, they say things happen in a reason, for a reason at the time that they happen. and it's just meant to be. So we're really thrilled that this is your time to shine.
Yes.
So
Me too.
thank you. My next question is, if you would please share how your upbringing or your culture might have influenced your communication style.
Upbringing and culture. Upbringing was due to my mother, and I believe I shared this on the world stage during my acceptance speech. My mother was an Avon lady and moved quickly up the ranks to district manager, to where she was in charge of leading 200 women to be the best that they could be as Avon ladies. So every Tuesday night, she had her Avon meeting and all her products on display. And my brother and I would go and set up all the setups so you could see all the perfumes and powders and lipsticks. And I watched my mom at the age of, I think I was maybe 8 or 10 years old. I watched my mom get in front of all these women and speak as if it was something everybody did every day. And 200 women, they can start talking and making noise. And instead of my mother, I remember this so well, instead of my mother say, excuse me, I'm speaking, or please quiet, I'm leading the meeting, she would just stop speaking and wouldn't say a word. And then eventually the entire room would get quiet. And you would hear the 2 or 3 ladies that were talking, and everybody would turn around and look. And then they would be quiet. And then she would continue the meeting. So I thought I was just wow. Because I would have been, excuse me, hang on, I'm the one leading the meeting. But she wouldn't say a word. So because of that, by the time I was 12 years old, she would ask my brother and my sister and I to get in front of the 200 women and talk about Avon products we had used that day. So I thought everybody did that. So I have zero fear of public speaking. And I owe her the world for that. As for my culture, my father would say that because of the time that because I guess the era that I was going through when I was being raised, he said, you're going to have to speak up for yourself because chances are nobody else is going to. And that stuck with me also. I thought that was very powerful and very meaningful, and it's kind of something that I've always had there in the back of my mind. So those two combined, I guess you got me.
Oh my goodness. So you have described an upbringing that just showered you with confidence and the ability to do what you do. But is there one particular episode or event that inspired you to the point that you said, public speaking is the journey that I'm going to take?
That's a great question. And I think I wanted to make both of my parents so proud of me. And I would sit there late at night watching the Johnny Carson show with my father. And he was just mesmerized by all these comedians that would get up there and just rapid fire, go, go, go. And I think I wanted to impress my father so much that for the longest time, I wanted to do stand-up comedy. And I thought one of these days I'm going to. So I may be 80 years old getting on the screen, on the stage for the first time as a stand-up comedian, but it's still there in the back of my mind. I never really thought that public speaking would be what I would be headed to or geared towards. But I am loving every single day and minute of it. Just love it.
I really love the talk shows. I've been to a number of them in person, and I always wanted to be on one and just shine. So I think that would be a wonderful thing for you to be able to do, is to, as the world winner, to be able to be on one of the talk shows and be interviewed there. That would be really amazing. Can you describe your first time speaking in front of a large audience, and what did you speak about?
I guess I would want to ask you to define large, because the first time that I was in front of a large group was back in 2019 in Denver, Colorado, when I was giving my finals speech. And I don't know if some people can relate to this or not, because again, like you say, public speaking is the #1 fear of most people. But with me, I am more nervous right now speaking to the two of you than I was speaking to the 1,700. Because out of 1,700 people, I can say a joke and maybe 300 or 400 of them will laugh, which is good. But if I say a joke right now and neither one of you think it's funny, it's not good for me. So the more,
If we both start laughing, we're all in trouble.
so the thing for me is the first time I was in front of a large audience was back in Denver, and I believe the audience was at about 1,700. That was it was euphoric because you feed off of the energy of the audience. That's my fuel right there.
Wow, that is exciting. And I can see and hear the passion in your voice when you describe that. But when you look back over all the things that you've told us about and the things that you've done, is there anything that you would change? And if so, why? Or why not?
Back in 1999, 98, when I first joined Toastmasters, and I was only with Toastmasters 2 or 3 years, and then they disbanded the club there where I was because it was a closed work club. I didn't pursue Toastmasters, and I guess people have asked me, well, if you would have stayed in it, it could have been different for you. But I think everything happens in its time, and right now, I think I'm getting the best deal out of it, because right now I'm retired. I'm able to travel. Had I reached this level back in my 30s or 40s, I still would have been working. I wouldn't have been able to take off time to do podcasts or travel the world or visit districts, any of that. So right now I am having the best time of my life, because all I have to do is open my calendar and they say, is this date available? And I'll say, yes, book it. So absolutely. I think everything happens when it needs to happen.
Well, I'm glad that you had the free time to come and talk with us. That's wonderful. I always thought that if you get to a certain level in your 30s, that your whole career is going to change, but perhaps not.
Well, I tell you what, had I done this in my 30s or 40s, I do believe, because I love, excuse me, because I love public speaking so much, I would have stuck with it until probably today. However, because I let go of that part, now I'm trying to aim and focus on my goal, which is spaying and neutering all the homeless dogs we have here in South Texas. Had I stuck with Toastmasters, I don't think I would have gone the route of being able to foster dogs, transport them, adopt, all these things that I think right now are so important, and something really needs to happen to make a change. So I'm grateful that I'm able to do that right now. And had I chosen public speaking, I don't think I would have had the opportunity to see that there's a need to change that.
So I am touched by your passion and all the phenomenal things that you are describing to us and for us. But I want to ask you about something that might help someone else who is considering becoming a member of Toastmasters and a public speaker. Did you find that the feedback given to you by your fellow Toastmasters helped your speaking style along the way?
That's a great question. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I don't think it changed my style.
Mhm.
However, it did prepare me for the world stage, because I would visit as many clubs as I could sharing my speech, and I would listen to anybody and everybody. There was one time I was in Austin, Texas, coming home. I'd gone and visited some friends, and it was actually April. So it was right before district. And there were these ladies in the middle of the street, and they were passing out flyers for a home that they were living in that was helping them make adjustments in their life. And I remember rolling down the window and giving her, I think it was a $5 bill. And I said, "Do you have 5 to 7 minutes?" And she looked at me and she says, "Ma'am, I can't get in the car." I said, "No, you don't have to get in the car, but I have a speech I want you to listen to, and I want you to tell me what you think about it." And so I pulled over to the side of the road and I shared my speech with her, and she made one or two comments that actually gave me her perspective, which I think as long as you get different people's perspective and use that and incorporate that in your speech, it gives you a better, more rounded speech to where you are able to connect with more different facets of your audience. And I think that is so important. So yes, absolutely.
So did you have any special mentors that helped to shape your speaking style?
No, you know what? I guess looking back on it now, my mother was very conversational. So you didn't know she was talking to one person or 200 people. And I believe that's what I've been told, that my style is very conversational. I know a lot of speakers get up there and feel it's maybe an act, or they speak differently when they're on stage. And I think I speak the same way when I'm talking to you right now or when I get on stage. So that was probably my mentor when it came to my style. I don't think I could do any other style, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
However, when it
you're
came
so
to
authentic that you can only be you. So, let me ask you a different question. In
Sure.
summary, what are 3 of the most important things you learned that would help someone to become a public speaker?
To become a public speaker, 3 important things.
Like I'd love to share my story. So
Okay.
what 3 things would I need to do in order to share my story publicly?
Okay, I know what the third one is, but I'm gonna try and think of the first and the second one. So the first one is, what would you need to do? You need to realize that your story is your story. And what you would be amazed at is that there are other people out there that need you to share your story so they can get the confidence to overcome or to tackle whatever it was that you talked about in your story. Because believe it or not, you think I thought I was the only one going through sadness and questioning my worth. when I found there were quite a few other people that were doing it just by the feedback I would get from the audience. So whatever your story is, somebody out there needs to hear it.
Mm.
The second thing is I would say to listen to anyone and everyone that wants to talk to you about your speech, whether they're a Toastmaster, whether they're somebody on the side of the road, whether you're your 9-year-old niece, it doesn't matter. Because I remember giving a speech one time and I spoke about my uncle passing away, and I didn't want to highlight that he had passed away. I just wanted to glaze over it so it didn't take away from the main point of my speech. So I said, well, when my uncle passed away, and I was giving the speech to my cousin and her 9-year-old daughter, and her 9-year-old daughter interrupted me and said, well, how did he die?
Mm.
And my cousin said, shh, don't interrupt her. I said, no, wait a minute. And I thought, if a 9-year-old wants to know how my uncle died, perhaps the entire audience wants to know how he died. So anytime anybody says anything, listen to it and evaluate it, and then realize whether you or actually make up your mind whether you want to incorporate that into your speech. Which leads me to the third one. The third one is be true to yourself. I went and practiced my final speech and talked about God, and everybody said, don't do it. Don't say anything about God. And I said, well, but I'm saying my God. Isn't it okay if I say my God? And they're like, well, do you really have to? Do you have to talk about St. Peter? And I'm like, yes, I do. And even though people advise me not to do it or not to spend the length of time that I did in it on my speech, I still went and did it. And I had told myself, if I have to come back next year, I'll come back next year.
You appear to be that kind of person. You absolutely do.
Great
Luisa,
answer, Luisa.
this has been a phenomenal part one. I'm so excited. Lisa, is there anything you'd like to leave with our viewing audience?
Yeah, I just love that answer, Luis. I thought that, those are 3 things that I could do, and that those would make my speech so much more impactful. So I really love that. And I just wanted to share, I am Lisa Thompson. I'm the public relations manager, and that you can follow our podcast at d57tm.org, as well as on the YouTube channel. And we send out a weekly digest that will have your podcast in it. And we have a newsletter that will hopefully feature you and talk about our experience here tonight. So please follow us on whatever form you can through D57. And we're just so happy you're here. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
you've heard all of that to our listening and viewing audience. But guess what? If you could identify with anything that Luisa said, I want you to join us for part 2. This was part 1. And there is so much excitement coming in part 2, because Luisa is going to tell us what in the world took place that led her to be the champion, the world champion of public speaking. How did she get there? Were there some particular things that she knew to do that you don't know? I want you to join us next week so that you can find out what they are. So this is Speak, Lead, and Grow, and we're asking you to do just that. But join us next week or for our next episode. And I'm Dee Marie, and we'll see you then.